Hello and welcome to Newsmaxtv. I'm John Bachman. Joining me right now from Washington, D.C. is Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins. She represents the 2nd Congressional District of Kansas. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now we're ending the 7th day of this government shutdown, and there's been very little progress made so far. But with the additional deadline of the debt limit drawing closer and closer, Obama administration economic advisor Gene Sperling today said that the White House may be open to a short-term debt increase. That would give both the GOP and the Democrats a little bit more time to work things out. Is the GOP House taking this seriously at all?
Well, I'm not sure it's time that we are needing. Right now, we're needing someone to sit down at the table to talk to us. As you well know, we've sent numerous CRs to the Senate, and they've all been killed. We've sent appropriation bills earlier this year, and recently, just in the last week, we've sent 8 funding bills to fund critical parts of the government, and the Senate's rejected that. They continue to maintain this position that they won't speak to us about the things that we disagree on. And so right now, as I said, it's not the time that's the problem. It's the fact that no one will sit down and have a conversation with us about how we move forward to solve this nation's fiscal mess.
And the big obstacle is whether or not that CR, the continuing resolution, should be clean or not, meaning any additional provisions attached to it. We continue to hear from Speaker Boehner saying that he doesn't have enough votes to pass a clean CR, but President Obama and Democrats continue to challenge Boehner on that. And here's what the president had to say today.
If Republicans and Speaker Boehner are saying there are not enough votes, then they should prove it. Let the bill go to the floor and let's see what happens. Just vote. Let every member of Congress vote their conscience, and they can determine whether or not they want to shut the government down.
What's your take on the president's comment? This is just coming Monday.
Well, we're not going to have a vote on a clean CR. What we're going to do is have a discussion about how to solve this nation's fiscal mess. We have $17 trillion in debt. This president has continued to rack up over $1 trillion deficits every year he's been in office. He presented a budget to us at the beginning of the year that never, ever balances. And we came here as a majority in the House to fix the problem. So we're going to have a discussion about that, and there's no time like the present.
But why not hold the vote like the president says just to prove him wrong? If there really aren't enough votes to pass this clean CR, as Speaker Boehner said on Sunday.
Why are we continuing to kick the can down the road? Why don't we solve the nation's problem right now? We have many opportunities to do that. Tax reform is something that we have asked to have a conversation about. Our autopilot spending programs that are bankrupt, Medicare, for example, is bankrupt in 8 to 12 years, depending on which actuary you believe. We want to save that program for seniors today and the next generation. We want to solve the problem.
I want to get back to those issues in 1 second, but I also want to talk about another Democratic talking point we continue to hear at White House press briefings and elsewhere during this shutdown is that the Democrats, have already agreed to funding levels that Republicans have set, and all the other stuff, Obamacare, entitlement reforms, regulation reforms, Medicare, Medicaid, things you just talked about. These should all be separate debates for another day. Do both sides really agree on those spending levels?
Absolutely not, because we still are running deficits. The House passed a budget that balances in 10 years, and what we would like to do is sit down and have a discussion with the Senate, whose budget, again, never balanced, about how we can get to balance. Small businesses can't continue to spend more money than they take in. Households, individuals in my district in Kansas can't spend more money than they take in year after year after year. Who in their right mind believes the federal government can continue to operate their finances this way? If not now, when will America ever fix the problem?
Now, the president is yet to offer up those concessions that you think might be, a move in the right direction. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think the bare minimum would be that would get you and the rest of the caucus, to say, okay, these are serious concessions the president is putting on the table? What would be the bare minimum to get the Republican Party interested in coming up with some sort of deal and working with the president?
I think what we've talked about are cuts and reforms that would equal dollar for dollar in increase in the debt ceiling, in exchange for cuts and reforms that would equal that. For example, tax reform has a huge economic benefit. We would count that as dollars that we would raise the debt ceiling. Saving Medicare, we would take those savings and apply to increasing the debt limit. If we can agree on some things on Social Security, all of those things would add up. So again, we're just talking about cuts and reforms that would offset any debt ceiling increase.
And with just about 2 weeks to go until we hit that limit, do you think those things can be accomplished if both sides do agree to sit down and start talking with each other?
I do believe they can be accomplished, but the only thing stopping us is actually having a discussion about it. And I just don't believe the President and Senate Democrats can sustain this my way or the highway, we refuse to have the conversation mentality on a going forward basis. That's just not reasonable. Every family knows if they've got some things they don't agree on, the only way they get to the bottom of them is to sit down and have a conversation.
Well, we're in this government shutdown right now, but everybody's pointing to this debt ceiling limit as what could be the real catastrophe, possibly spurring another recession like the one we saw in 2008. Congressman, where do you think we'll be 2 weeks from today? Do you think we're going to be up against this deadline trying to negotiate something at the last minute? Or do you think there's going to be real progress here? Are both sides going to work this out?
I think it's entirely up to Senate Democrats and the President. If they want to come to the table and have a discussion with us, we're being very reasonable. We'd be happy to come up with a plan to go forward. If they continue to hold out, I'm afraid that they might cause some damage to the economy.
Well, that's what everybody's predicting. If we do see a default on the U.S. debt, which would be the first time that happened in American history. So everybody's hoping that can be avoided. Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins from Kansas, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.